What is it going to take to motivate you to say, I believe that this is going to be a turning point in my life, and I'm going to make every election count, and we're going to do whatever it takes to get our state on track with implementing Republic Review and auditing the Constitution? Why is that the fact? Well, the fact is that the state legislatures, the 5,445 legislatures in this republic, they have the power to call out the federal government for violating the Constitution and basically calling them on the carpet and saying, where did we give you this power? And auditing the Constitution. How do I say that? Well, that's exactly, if you understand the state legislatures have that power, that's exactly where Madison and Jefferson went in calling out the federal government in 1798 with the resolutions of Kentucky and Virginia. And they didn't hold back. I mean, they basically called them out for violating the Constitution, and they created resolutions, and they made an appeal. And I believe that what they would have called that would have been something like Republic Review, in getting all the states together in auditing the federal government, because I believe, there's no doubt in my mind, it's not a belief, there's no doubt in my mind, that's exactly what Jefferson and Madison were intending. They were intending in a massive rebuke of the federal government, and that the states would step in and pull back those powers and say, you can't do this. And if you insist on doing this, then we'll try you for treason, because we're pointing out to you that we did not give you this authority to be able to bypass the First Amendment and or the Constitution. And so there you go. The states do have that authority, and they can step in, and that's why those 5,445 legislatures across the republic are very critical. And so let me go to one more little thing that's, I think, great marketing, because it's just in our face every day, every year. The fact that our healthcare system has been demolished by Obamacare. Unconstitutional assertion of power, the Department of Health and Welfare, unconstitutional. What is it going to take to motivate you, and how much tyranny are you going to live under before you recognize that you don't have to live under this, that all you've got to do is get your state motivated? And so I can kind of go down the list, and there's a long list with Obamacare. And why are we even talking about it anymore? What we should be talking about is maybe just kind of covering the entire gamut of all the violations and moving forward. But we first have to understand what moving forward is and why and so forth. So what I think is also important is, throwing out some of these motivating factors and then giving you some more supporting data from this week or today. It'll be some more Federalist papers, and these are all from Hamilton. And so yesterday it was the Federalist papers from Madison. And so as I start every time I go into the citations, let me just say this. Are the words in our founding documents that I am citing the words of deceit? Or are they the words that have been taught from our progressive education system, the progressive colleges and professors, lawyers, politicians, and bureaucrats, the words of deceit? Because what we've been taught is in stark contrast to what the framers have said in these documents as to the Constitution, the state's powers, states' roles, and so forth. As a matter of fact, I got to take a quick second and point out, I'm not sure if you remember Megyn Kelly poking Governor Abbott in the eye over the Constitution with her disdain and saying, and this was when she was on Fox News, what does he know about the Constitution? I can tell you, based on everything I've heard come out of Megyn Kelly's mouth, she knows everything that the progressives want her to know and understand, or I should say, the narrative of the secular progressive education system. Obviously, she believes in a living constitution, and the federal government can inflict any type of tyranny upon us. And so she is wrong. She doesn't know the Constitution. She doesn't know the framers, and she should probably check herself in looking into the Constitution, the ratification debates, and the Federalist Papers before she starts poking anybody else in the eye. It's kind of like that mote beam thing. You know what I mean? Anyway, so this is Alexander Hamilton, Federalist Paper number 17, and it goes, quote, "The separate governments in a confederacy may aptly be compared to the feudal baronies." And let me stop here. He's talking about a confederacy. Because if you understand, our republic was formed as a confederacy. And oh, by the way, if you remember this hybrid constitutional republic, part of our hybrid constitutional republic is that they retained the confederacy. In other words, a confederacy is where the states possess most all the power, and they only delegate very limited power to a federation or a federal government. And so most people refer to us as federalism and that type of thing. Actually, that's not true. And that's why we are a hybrid constitutional republic. And Hamilton was hitting the nail on the head here when he was comparing a confederacy to the feudal baronies, with this advantage in their favor, that from the reasons already explained, and here's the highlight, they, the states in the confederacy, will generally possess the confidence and goodwill of the people, and with so important to support, will be able effectually to oppose all encroachments of the national government. And so right there, he's basically stating the case that it's not that the states don't have the power. The question is whether the people would be supportive of the states, and actually he's pointing out that they should possess the confidence and goodwill of those people to support them so that they can effectually oppose the encroachments of the national government. So the next Federalist paper from Hamilton is Federalist number 26. And so there's a few points I'm going to highlight on this as well. Independent of parties in the national legislature itself, as often as the period of discussion arrived, the state legislatures, who will always be not only vigilant but suspicious and jealous guardians of the rights of the citizens against encroachments from the federal government, will constantly have their attention awake to the conduct of the national rulers. I'm going to stop right there. That's precisely what happened when Madison, and actually, unfortunately, that's not really precisely what happened. When Madison and Jefferson went back to Kentucky and Virginia, they were the ones that were waking up those state legislatures because they were kind of caught sleeping at the wheel. Well, we've been asleep at the wheel for a long time, folks. Anyway, he goes on to say, and I want to highlight this, and will be ready, so that these state legislatures will be watching and, watching the conduct of the national rulers, and will be ready enough, if anything improper appears, to sound the alarm to the people, and not only be the voice, but if necessary, the arm of their discontent. So he's stating that the states actually have the force and power in this contract because they are the stakeholders, and that is how it is because of the way they wrote this Constitution. It's not a charter that came, from the king. It's not a charter that came from we the people, as Madison aptly put. And I said this again, and so I have to repeat these things. June 6, 1788, during the ratification debates, he said, who is we the people? Who are the parties to this Constitution? We the people? Not we the people as a collective body, but we the people of the 13 sovereign states. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's precisely what he meant, that the states and these people that Hamilton is talking about were the ones that were the stakeholders, not some grandioso, collective body of we the people that everybody misinterprets that style that they put in the very front of the Constitution. It's not we the people. It's we the people of the states. And if you read the original draft of that, they actually had we the people of, and then they listed the states. They took all of that out to just simplify it for a style purpose, to kind of help it flow a little bit easier. So if you understand that, we're not a democracy, and that's one of the reasons why when I hear people say, we the people, that means mob rule democracy, and that's not the republic that they created. And clearly these words help clarify that. And so moving on, Federalist Paper number 31, as in republics, strength is always on the side of the people, as they were weighty reasons to induce a belief that the state governments will commonly possess most influence over them. Emphasis here, there is greater probability of encroachments by the members upon the federal head than by the federal head upon the members. In other words, he's saying that the states have that much more power, that there is a greater likelihood that the states would encroach upon the federal responsibilities and powers than vice versa, that the federal government would do that. The safest course to lay them altogether aside and to confine our attention wholly to the nature and extent of the powers that they are delineated in the Constitution. So he makes an argument that there's a likelihood, but that didn't come to fruition. And as a matter of fact, I think Madison was correct. The propensity is a central government is always this tyrannical force that is just waiting to happen so that they can start sucking in more power. And I don't have time to get into centrifugal and centripetal political energies and Thomas Jefferson, so I'll do that in a future day. But I want to get through this last Federalist paper, which is Federalist paper number 34, again, Hamilton. It merits particular attention in this place that the laws of the Confederacy as to the enumerated and legitimate objects of its jurisdiction will become the supreme law of the land. Again, huge enumerated legitimate objects of its jurisdiction. It goes on to the observance of which all officers, legislative, executive, and judicial in each state will be bound by the sanctity of an oath. Thus, the legislatures, courts, magistrates of the respective members will be incorporated into the operations of the national government as far as its just and constitutional authority extends. I'm almost out of time here, but that's the importance of why every state and political and public officer that is elected has to take an oath. And that oath, the first thing they say in that oath is they will support and defend, and in the state of Washington, it's just support, but they will support the Constitution. That is the first thing that they have to do. And that's why they are held to that oath, and that's why we, the people of these states, have to hold them to that oath, that they've been neglecting their job in oversight over the Constitution. And what they have to do is start calling out the federal government. And so what we have to do is get local representatives and local movement, grass movement, and what have you, on our state legislatures to get them to do their job. That way we can reclaim the republic through republic review. And with that, my friends, we are literally out of time. And that means that I will be back tomorrow between 3 and 4. Thank you for actually staying tuned and not dropping